Okay, before we start, please note that this video does contain spoilers for the entirety of the main story of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Senna's side story. So, if you haven't completed both of those, I do recommend that you not watch this video yet, because the game is much better experienced blind. And there's no shame in putting this in your watch later folder or bookmarking this video for whenever you're ready. But with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Shania. She's one of the most polarizing characters in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. On one hand, you have artists on Twitter, that hopefully isn't dead by this point, who love Shania and draw tons of fan art of her. And on the other hand, you have people who would want to beat her with a stick. Now, what she does to Noah's group is inexcusable, but were her motives not so inexcusable? That's what I'm going to be trying to figure out today, and try to figure out the answer to the much debated question. Was Shania based? Before we can figure out how base she was, let's refresh ourselves on what she did. Shania is formally introduced to the party in Chapter 5 when they reach the outskirts of the city, but she was sent as a scout by the city to keep an eye on Noah's group to make sure that they were the real deal, using the Ouroboros powers for good. She accompanies the group through the tour of the city, but takes a back seat in the story until Noah's group stages a prison escape. And there was a reason why she took a back seat in the story, as she was conspiring with Mobius, as she rats out Noah's group's escape plans and Mobius are able to capture them. The reason Shania did this is because she believes that the way of the city is inferior to the way of Mobius, and since Ouroboros is the only thing in the way of Mobius, she wants them dead, alongside everyone in the city. Although she tries her hardest to accomplish this, Im and Mio thwart all of those plans in approximately 30 minutes. And before the group can question Shania on why she did what she did, she shoots herself. That seems to be the end of the story for her, but she comes out briefly in Senna's side story, where Mobius resurrects her. And although she tries to take revenge on the city, Noah's group thwarts her plans again. Before she dies, Gondor tells her that she should have followed her dreams, and then she dies. And that's it. She never reappears again. Okay, so you can probably tell why most people would hate Shania. She comes in and nearly single-handedly kills both Noah's group and the city. Her reasoning for doing so as well seems absolutely preposterous. How is the Mobius way of life, living in an endless cycle of fighting with no memories of your past lives, better than the city's way of life, where you live to be old and have children? Her reasoning for siding with Mobius is so she can get another shot at life. She seemingly feels like a failure, so why would not getting another shot at life be better, even if you don't live for longer than 10 years? Again, to the player in Noah's group, she seems to have gone insane. Why would she think this? Well, there is a reason why she thinks like this. She doesn't have the full picture. Think about it. Since she got sent out for the scouting mission around 2 months before Noah's group makes it to the city, she has only had that time to scout what the outside world is like. This could potentially be her first time ever stepping foot out of the city. Would that really be enough time for her to truly realize what it's like to live in that life? Assumedly as well, if she was conspiring with Mobius, she wasn't talking to anyone from the city on her thoughts about the outside world, so she had no one to counter her thoughts. And Mobius will of course try to manipulate her to think that their way of living is better. You likely remember her last speech before shooting herself, saying that she always seems to end up alone and against the world. In Senna's side story, the group finds out why she felt alone. Her mother put a lot of pressure on her to be one of the top Ouroboros candidates, but she never was made for that and enjoyed her hobby of painting. However, her mother assumedly made her stop doing that in order to train to be an Ouroboros candidate, and when she couldn't live up to those expectations, she felt like a failure. Shania's father, who is seen in Senna's side story, tells her to follow her dreams of being a painter, but he assumedly dies, leaving the mother's dream of her becoming an Ouroboros candidate being the main thing in her mind. And since the only other person we see her interact with in her childhood is Gondor, who notably doesn't word things the best way, you can probably see why she felt like that. And since Mobius likely were manipulating her, only telling her the good things about the way their life is, she likely didn't know that you don't have any memories of a past life, and you're stuck in an endless cycle without your knowledge, making every life you live futile in a way, one of the many negatives of Mobius' way of life. So no, she wasn't based, and was not correct. She should have definitely consulted with city members about how she was feeling, but in that situation that she was in, she likely found it difficult. Now this wouldn't make Noah's group based for trying to help the city, but they're actually more like Shania than you think. If you think about it, they only really experienced the way of the city for around 24 hours before committing to help the city out. Now obviously they held a lot of respect for Guernica, he did save their lives after all, but still it was not wise to commit to a cause that you've only had 24 hours to really know what they're fighting. They were also fighting against Mobius, but who said they wouldn't have had nefarious intentions afterwards? Obviously, as the viewer in the story, we know which way was right and wrong, but from their perspective, they didn't know that information. Luckily, Kion's intellect was wrong about being cautious about the city and everything worked out fine, But Shania made the same mistake that Noah's group made in the story. She just made the mistake with the wrong organization and it ended up killing her. Twice. So yeah, neither group is really based at the end of the day, but since researching more into this topic, I kinda wish that Shania's perspective was looked into a little bit more. Noah's group ends up figuring out the negatives of the city life and side quests, and since those are canon, they ended up still fighting for the city and freeing the world from Mobius. But we never really get to see Shania or that perspective challenged any further than after Shania dies for the second time. You get to see people who can't give fighting up because that's all they've known, but not the perspective of those who genuinely think that Mobius' way of life is better. Besides Mobius, who would obviously think that way. I don't know how they would have implemented it, but it would have been nice to see it in a side story or in a side quest at the least. And that's that. A bit of a character dive on Shania. If you have any other characters you'd want me to do this on, please leave your suggestions down in the comments below. I read every comment, even the 2,000-word essay ones. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider subscribing. There's more Xenoblade content on the way, so if you're a fan of that type of content, I'm sure this channel will be great for you. But with that, I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever you are, and this is Crystalized, signing out.